As President Trump steps back from most tariffs on products coming from Mexico and Canada, it's clear these tariffs were, in our view, unjustified, unwarranted, and misguided. Countless American subsidiaries employ Canadians up here, so, we can't go too far and completely boycott American companies. But after the Trump tariffs, that's exactly what's happening. Boycotts against U.S. goods. Have you ever imagined a time when Canada, America's quiet, loyal neighbor, would quietly turn its back on some of the most iconic American brands? Well, in 2025, that day has finally come. And it's not just a headline, it's a shock that's rippling across global markets. After waves of tariffs from the Trump administration, something extraordinary took place. Canadians didn't riot. They didn't hold loud protests. Instead, they simply stopped buying. Starbucks cafes, empty seats, Harley-Davidson dealerships, showrooms gathering dust, McDonald's, families choosing local spots over the Golden Arches, and overnight, thousands of students canceled their U.S. college applications. The numbers say it all. Two-thirds of Canadians, that's 66%, say they've cut back on buying American products. Even more, 70%, say they're buying more Canadian-made goods. This Buy Canadian trend isn't just talk anymore, it's changing what people put in their shopping carts. And the fallout? Hundreds of American stores closed. Thousands of jobs vanished. Suddenly, the American dream looks less shiny, even to its biggest fans just across the border. But this is deeper than logos, coffee cups, or fast food. This is about trust, national pride, and the quiet power of everyday choices. Every cup of coffee, every pair of shoes, every grocery run is making a clear statement about where Canadians stand. So, can you guess which American brand took the hardest hit? And who's sitting at number 5 on the list? Stick around till the end. You won't believe it. Starbucks, the American coffee giant, is feeling serious pressure north of the border. After new tariffs and the economic uncertainty fueled by the Trump administration in early 2025, the mood in Canadian cities began to shift. Between February and March, Starbucks saw a steady drop in customers as Canadians, fed up with rising prices and tired of unpredictable trade wars, started to rethink where they spent their money. On April 29, 2025, Starbucks CEO Brian Niccol admitted the company was having a tough time. For the fourth quarter straight, global sales were down. Rising costs due to tariffs and inflation hit the company not just in America, but everywhere. North American same-store sales were down 1% in the fiscal second quarter, and Canadian sales just barely scraped by, masking deeper worries among store owners and baristas alike. In response, Starbucks paused its expensive store revamp plan and quickly focused on local sourcing and marketing. Even with customers spending about 3% more per visit, the real story was hard to hide. Local cafes were booming, and Starbucks' stock price fell 6% overnight. For many Canadians, choosing where to buy coffee felt like a quiet, powerful choice. Support your local community, or give your money to a global chain caught up in turmoil. This silent boycott is no longer just talk. As Starbucks struggles to win customers back, one big question remains. When was the last time you picked a brand because of its values, not just its logo? In early 2025, McDonald's Canada found itself at the center of this growing backlash. Even though the company sourced its beef, potatoes, and dairy from Canadian farms, the Golden Arches had come to symbolize American overreach as trade tensions flared up. And it all started with President Trump's tariffs and remarks suggesting Canada should be America's 51st state. That was the last straw for many Canadians, sparking a surge in buying local. By mid-February, Loblaw, Canada's biggest grocery retailer, saw double-digit sales spikes for Canadian-made foods, especially dairy, frozen goods, and groceries. This wasn't just about the economy, it was about pride and identity. Social media was filled with posts urging people to support local companies, and Facebook groups dedicated to buying Canadian skyrocketed to more than 1 million members. Despite all its local sourcing, McDonald's Canada couldn't avoid the backlash. Globally, McDonald's comparable sales fell 1% in the first quarter of 2025. And in North America, same-store sales dropped a sharp 3.6%, the biggest fall since the pandemic. Meanwhile, Canadians kept turning to homegrown burger spots focused on farm-fresh menus and local connections. This boycott wasn't just about food preferences, it was a way to teach consumers, encouraging local support and self-reliance among younger generations. However, its impact wasn't entirely positive. Many McDonald's employees, important members of their communities, saw their hours cut and their job security threatened. One worker noted on Threads that while the boycott was meant to challenge U.S. policies, it unintentionally punished Canadian workers who had nothing to do with those decisions. This complex situation reveals the many sides of economic protests. They can be powerful tools for political expression and national unity, but they also produce unintended ripple effects in local communities. While McDonald's experienced a clear drop in customer visits, Amazon faced a more digital kind of protest. In early 2025, Canadian customers began to rethink their relationship with the online retailer, leading to a surge in Amazon Prime cancellations. Sparrow data shows that Amazon Prime was the most canceled subscription during this period. On average, over 578,000 people searched how to cancel it each month, nearly 45% more than those searching for Disney+. This wave of cancellations wasn't only driven by tariffs or political reasons. It was also about making sure buying habits reflected personal values. The idea that every click is a choice caught on, showing that where people shop also signals their stance on business ethics. In this new environment, Canadian platforms like Well.ca experienced strong growth. Well.ca reported record quarterly revenues of $294.1 million in Q1 of 2025, up 32% compared to the previous year. Similarly, Local Loop, a platform focused on community engagement, gained more traction as Canadians looked for local, community-focused alternatives. These shifts highlight a larger trend. People weren't just reacting to politics, they were choosing to back brands that aligned with their values and supported their communities. The Amazon boycott in Canada showcased a more nuanced kind of protest, one where spending choices and ethics went hand in hand. It's an example of how consumers' values and buying power can combine to drive real change. Meanwhile, while Amazon was facing a digital backlash, Walmart Canada dealt with an actual drop in shopper traffic. In early 2025, the #ShopCanadian Movement gained momentum, inspiring many Canadians to reconsider their purchasing habits. This movement urged people to support local businesses and products, even if they had to pay a bit more. Consequently, Walmart Canada's online platform experienced a noticeable dip in visits. Salesforce data showed online retail spending fell by 3% in Canada during Q1 of 2025, part of a broader pattern of careful spending during tough economic times. This was especially obvious in provinces like British Columbia and Quebec, where campaigns promoting Canadian-made goods were especially strong. Recognizing this shift, Canadian retailers moved to bolster their positions. Canadian Tire, for example, reported a 4.7% increase in comparable sales in Q1 of 2025. The company also introduced its $2 billion True North strategy, focused on boosting customer loyalty and expanding its footprint. This plan reflects the rising emphasis on community-centered shopping and the need to align with national values. As the retail scene in Canada evolves, one key question remains for customers. Do you put convenience first, or do you support local values? With the #ShopCanadian movement continuing to shape habits, companies must adapt to meet these new expectations. While Amazon and Walmart experienced digital and retail protests, Coca-Cola faced a more symbolic backlash in Canada during 2025. Despite its global fame, Coca-Cola's image took a hit as Canadian shoppers increasingly chose local brands to show their pride. In the first quarter of 2025, Coca-Cola reported a 17% drop in unit case volume, mostly due to changes in its bottling operations. This decline came as part of a larger shift where Canadian consumers preferred homegrown drinks like Canada Dry and 1642 Cola. The shift wasn't just about changing tastes. It was a protest against perceived American corporate dominance. In February 2025, Coca-Cola released a limited edition orange cream flavor in Canada, hoping to spark interest with a nostalgic novelty product. Although there were some stock shortages, these seemed driven by supply chain hurdles rather than a lack of demand. Still, this move revealed a deeper issue. Big international brands often fail to truly connect with Canadian customers, especially during a period of heightened local pride. And, this boycott went far beyond individual purchases. Institutions like movie theaters, universities, and restaurants started pulling Coca-Cola off their menus in favor of local options. This collective action sent a clear message. Supporting local companies was not just a financial decision, it was a cultural one. As Coca-Cola faced this difficult landscape, a larger question arose. In a world dominated by global brands, where do national identity and personal choices meet? By 2025, for many Canadians, choosing local was a way to reaffirm their values and identity. While Coca-Cola faced challenges in Canada, Harley-Davidson was hit even harder, this time losing part of its core brand image. Once a symbol of freedom and rebellion, Harley bikes just weren't resonating anymore. By the end of 2024, the company's global motorcycle shipments had dropped 17% year over year, and North American retail sales fell 4%. The larger cruisers, including softail models, were especially hard hit that last quarter. Then, after Canada imposed a 25% tariff on US-made motorcycles, prices spiked. The result? Moto Canada reported a steep 22% decline in motorcycle sales for the first quarter of 2025 compared to the year before. In a trade war environment, buyers just weren't spending big. Harley tried to pivot by launching electric bikes under its Livewire brand, but even those sales slipped 7% in 2024. Dealerships began shutting down, while riders switched to European brands like Triumph and Ducati, or even to homegrown electric options. And it wasn't only about the motorcycles. It was a powerful statement about Canadian pride and supporting local industry. Harley-Davidson's story in Canada shows just how quickly changing policies and shifting values can turn a celebrated icon into an outsider. This leaves us with a serious question. Would you give up something you love if it no longer fits your values? While Harley-Davidson's struggles reflected a cultural shift, Nike's drop in Canada during 2025 showed just how much consumer priorities had evolved. Once a dominant player in athletic wear, Nike faced headwinds as Canadian shoppers began favoring local and eco-friendly alternatives. In the third quarter of fiscal 2025, Nike's total revenue fell 9%, reaching $11.26 billion, down from $12.42 billion during the same period the year before. This decrease was linked to declining Nike brand sales across every region, especially North America. Specifically, Nike direct revenues fell by 12%, driven mostly by a 15% decrease in online sales and a 2% decrease at Nike-owned retail stores. Meanwhile, Canadian consumers were increasingly supporting homegrown companies that matched their personal values. Vessi, a Vancouver-based brand making 100% waterproof shoes, gained popularity. Its DayX technology and focus on sustainability caught the attention of customers looking to buy from brands with a local footprint. This wasn't just about product features. It reflected a deeper movement toward more ethical consumption. Buyers were making deliberate decisions to support companies that reflected their personal and national principles. This trend also sparked new platforms that promoted thoughtful shopping. Apps like Good On You and Mint empowered consumers to track their spending habits, compare companies, and make choices that aligned with their beliefs. Nike's experience in Canada during 2025 raised a significant question for shoppers. Does your choice of footwear show your identity and values? In this climate, backing companies that supported communities, sustainability, and Canadian pride became a top priority for many. Nike's struggles in Canada highlighted a growing shift as people increasingly valued homegrown products. But nowhere was this shift clearer than in beer. According to market research Future, Canada's craft beer sector was valued at $10 billion in 2024, and it's on track to quadruple to $40 billion by 2035. That reflects an impressive 13% yearly growth rate. Brands like Moosehead and Steam Whistle thrived as more bars and restaurants across Ontario and British Columbia picked local beers, even dropping Budweiser to make space. It was more than just taste. Customers wanted their spending to support Canadian jobs and help local economies grow. Still, the shift hasn't been entirely smooth. Distributors that once hauled large shipments of Budweiser had to pivot to handling smaller craft beer orders, and the supply chains weren't built for this new demand. Even so, more Canadians today are putting their money where their values are. The real question is, would you do the same? Budweiser's declining sales in Canada reflected this larger preference for local brews, while KFC's slump in 2025 showed an even deeper shift towards supporting community-focused dining. In Ontario and Alberta, KFC's revenue fell noticeably as consumers leaned toward homegrown restaurants. Even though official numbers for these provinces weren't released, this pattern matched the country's embrace of neighborhood eateries. That shift was also powered by platforms like Local Bites, apps that highlight local restaurants and drive consumers toward unique, community-centered spots. Local Bites saw a rise in engagement as people searched for alternatives to multinational chains, drawn to personal service and regional flavors. In 2024, Canada's food service industry was worth $84 billion and is projected to grow to $135 billion by 2033, fueled by interest in quicker, healthier meals and apps like Uber Eats and DoorDash. This evolution reflects a deeper cultural change. Canadians aren't just following trends anymore, they're creating them. As local breweries and independent restaurants continue to grow, what's on tap and on the plate looks less like the standard big-name brands and more like a celebration of local creativity. For many customers in 2025, discovering new favorites meant going local, exploring neighborhood spots, sampling new flavors, and creating their own traditions. And as KFC's struggles in Canada showed, this shift toward local dining also matches a broader reevaluation, one that extends even to education choices, including declining interest in U.S. universities that same year. This movement wasn't just about academics, it was about aligning with national values and choosing places that matched personal and community beliefs. In early 2025, the University of British Columbia's Vancouver campus saw a 27% jump in graduate applications from U.S. citizens compared to the year before. Likewise, the University of Toronto noted a significant rise in U.S. applications by its January deadline for 2025 programs. The University of Waterloo also noticed more American visitors to its campus and higher web traffic from the United States since September 2024. This change was mostly driven by policies under the Trump administration that included revoking visas for international students and increasing scrutiny of their social media. These steps pushed many to reconsider the U.S. as a top place to study. At the same time, the United Kingdom experienced a surge in interest from international students. In January 2025, the UK Home Office received 28,700 study visa applications, a 13% increase over January 2024. It's not just about top universities or prestigious degrees anymore. It's also about where students feel welcome and safe. Many families now look at how countries handle visas, whether they feel safe walking across campus, and how respected international students are. Factors like these matter as much as academic ranking. This shift in student preferences wasn't only about course options. It showed a deeper desire to learn in places that value inclusiveness, stability, and respect for students from around the world. For many Canadian families, choosing a place to study became a reflection of their trust in that nation's principles. So, have you or your family ever thought twice about studying in the U.S.? What influenced that decision? What if we told you that something as simple as a trip to the grocery store could shake up global trade? This isn't just about boycotting brands like Coke, Amazon, or Harley-Davidson. These were 10 signs of a larger shift. A country going through a quiet but powerful change, where people shop with their beliefs, not just their wallets. What we're seeing in Canada goes beyond a backlash against American products. It's part of a quiet revolution where local loyalty matters more than convenience, and every purchase is a choice that sends a message. What kind of future do we want to build together? From fast food to clothing, from beer purchases to college applications, the ripple effects of tariffs have created a new kind of consumer power, one that's difficult to predict and even harder to control. And here's the big question. Is this the start of a worldwide change? Could this moment spark a new wave of conscious consumerism that reshapes not just what we buy, but also what we believe in? You tell us, is this just a Canadian story or the beginning of something much bigger? Share your thoughts in the comments.